Minutes for May 21st, 2026.
It's a proper motion. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. Next item on our agenda is public comment on agenda items. So we will give any members of the public wishing to speak up to 3 minutes to address items on the agenda. If you do wish to speak, please approach the table, identify your name for the record, and proceed. Go ahead. Yes, sir. Please.
Greetings, I'm Tom Edmiston with the Capital Area Housing Partnership, Raleigh's old organization. I'm in favor of the 4% by right pilot, just go on record for that. Not a whole lot to say other than the fact that it really does make some developments that are borderline workable. So it helps improve the financial capacity of the developer in order to keep the rents affordable, as well as being able to proceed with the developments that kind of are on the cusp of affordability. So it becomes very important in that regard. It does help to take especially vacant properties that are very little tax revenue to at least get something. So 4% by right pilot actually enhances that. If it's an existing affordable housing development and you're trying to preserve it so you have continued workforce housing in the city, it's a similar sort of thing. It's not going to reduce the amount of property taxes that the property is currently generating. It'll just help keep it fairly steady so that the rents remain affordable. The other aspect of this from the investor side is that when they're looking to invest money in Lansing, they're looking for developments where there's some assurance that the property taxes after the renovation or after the new construction are not going to skyrocket. Because if I'm putting investment into a property, I want to make sure that I'm going to be able to make sure that that property maintains affordability and also stability over the years. So from an investor standpoint, it's critical that you have a pilot ordinance in place so that the amount of property taxes paid are always in relationship to the rents that are being charged. So those are the main reasons I think it's important. The other factor is just anytime you have a pilot that's by right, as opposed to a pilot that always has to go through city council approval, it takes one element out of the council's agenda that often is perfunctory, because a lot of times these requests for pilots have to precede an application to the Michigan State Housing Development Authority. So before you can go to Michigan to knock on their door and ask for funding, you have to have a pilot in place. Well, only about 20 or 25% of the applications that go into Michigan actually get awarded credits, housing credits. So oftentimes the council is going through the motions to review a pilot application when in fact the project is not going to be approved by Michigan. So it's just been a waste of effort on the council's part. So those are my comments.
There you go. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon. My name is Caitlin Kretz. I'm the Senior Vice President of Underwriting for Sanair. A lot of what I'll briefly share here is a reiteration of what Tom introduced, but want to share from the investor perspective the importance of this type of tax incentives to ensuring that our projects are viable, are able to operate in today's market conditions, and ultimately also this particular ordinance will create some massive dividends when it comes to the timing and acceleration of developing this type of housing. So want to share with you all that for Sanair, we closed 26 deals thus far this year. And of those 26 deals, 19 of them benefited from some form of tax incentive, largely pilots. And so that is about 73% of the market share that we have that is directly viable and able to be created due to those incentives that we have seen successfully done in other markets like Detroit and Grand Rapids. In addition, I took a look at one project in particular. This is a project that was developed here in Lansing and was able to secure a 5% pilot. I was able to run the analysis as to what the rental effect would be if we had to pay full payment of taxes. And what I found is that it resulted in around $250 in additional rental obligations for the tenants if we did not have that pilot. When you combine that with the fact that this is affordable housing, and so those folks are paying a moderate share of rent compared to the market rents, I was able to calculate that on average, every household was saving around $6,700 a year due to one, the creation of this affordable housing, and two, the benefit of the pilot ordinance that was approved. And again, that was with a 5% pilot. And so in a project that had 63 units, that was 133 individuals who were uniquely affected by those influences. And so we want to reiterate that what's in front of you all today is important work. We have communities that need this type of attention, and we believe that your support of this ordinance will allow for the creation and preservation of additional quality housing, as we've seen in some recent developments like the Lansing Housing Commission developments downtown, the Walter French project, and many more that are in the pipeline. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Gary Heidel. I'm an affiliated consultant working with Woda Cooper Development. They're a for-profit development company, but operate as a employee-owned company. They are proposing to work in the city of Lansing on a project. One of the things they've met with MSHDA, going through the process of looking at getting a 4% pilot and also loans from MSHDA. But what they have found, there is a gap in the projects, what is usually the case these days, just because of differences in cost, especially in materials and labor. And the difference between the 10% pilot and a 4% pilot is like over $1 million a year, or excuse me, $1 million over the life of the project, which means if with that savings, not only does it make the project more economically feasible, it's also additional resources that get put back into the entities provided by that provided to the constituents. I think the other important thing is usually with the companies that will come before you, whether they're for-profit developers or nonprofit developers, you will always find though that one of their biggest concerns is the impact of these projects on the community, just not the people who are going to live in it, but the entire community. And so what they like to do is WODA like to do is they work with the community. They've already had several meetings with the MLK CIA in order to talk about what this project might mean to the community. They've had meetings with groups down in South Lansing. And the idea is, and they've made changes to the site plan that would respond to the community needs. And I think this is the kind of relationship you see going on between those who will come forward wanting to do this kind of a project. And I won't iterate exactly what was said before, but it's, with what we've been seeing in cost, it's been very complex in order to really finance affordable housing these days. And this will be extremely important. And as you know, the councilwoman did some great research on this pilot, this 4% buy rate pilot used in other Michigan cities, and it has been a boon in development. So we do know that it works. And in terms of what might be the concerns is, will these be good projects? Well, they're going to be overseen both in terms of management and even in development by the State Housing Authority. And as a former employee of MSHDA, I can tell you that we used to look at these very, very seriously, and what it means in terms, they have to be compliant with local codes, local laws. They have to be able to be economically feasible. Management companies have to be top tier management companies. So they take it very seriously. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to hand the gavel back over to our chair.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilmember Spatafor. And again, my apologies for my tardiness. We're still in public?
Just finished public comment. I think. No one else?
No virtual. No virtual? All right, perfect. Thank you. So then we will move on to the discussion action item B, the resolution for grant acceptance, United States Department of Transportation, Reconnecting Communities Program.
Andy Kilpatrick.
All right, Mr. Kilpatrick.
Thank you. So those that have been around a long time, or at least not, they know 496. When it was not there were neighborhoods there, and there was with Park Service, kind of documentary done about the impact of that. And we applied for federal funding to study ways that we might be able to reconnect those communities. We were awarded funding to do the study. would still then have to apply to do, to get the funding to actually implement a project, but that's what this grant acceptance is for, to move forward with the study to do that. And it's primarily the residential area west of MLK to like the city limits, but it would include kind of MLK itself in that area.
I didn't see a city match, did I?
I don't think this, and I was gonna look, but this one I don't think has a match. The construction would have a 20% match. So that is a high dollar amount, but at least for doing the study, no match.
Yes, go ahead.
What kind of construction might happen?
So what we're envisioning is some sort of cap over it. So whether it probably would not be occupied space, but park, other area, yeah, kind of like that, yeah, down Detroit area. But that is based on the input we're gonna get from the public, but that is at least initially what we're envisioning, some way to sort of physically connect that, so we're not just a couple bridges there.
Not zip lines, though.
Probably not,
Oh, fun.
even though we might have zip lines if it's like a park area over there, right?
I move the resolution.
So moved. Is there any other questions from the committee? All right, that's proper motion on the floor. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Passes.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Air quality.
Right.
Yeah, I should put a mask on.
I have-
Yes, I'm a whole campfire right now.
Okay.
Next, we are moving on to item C, discussion ordinance for the repeal, chapter 886, tax exemptions, multifamily dwelling. And I know we had a conversation or hearing from back in June. And this is the ordinance, again, codified ordinance of our city to repeal its entirety and shall be null and void with of no effect. All ordinance resolutions and or parts of the ordinance resolutions or rules inconsistent with the provisions are repealed. Is there any other information or communication that needs to be stated for this item, this second item?
So I do have a question for the city attorney's office. The repealer and the next ordinance,
Yes.
the enacting section for both, one is 14 days for the repealer and the section for the new ordinance is 30 days. Is that a problem?
Hold on.
I think the
Unless you-
charter, I think it's a typo, because isn't the charter said it's 14.
14.
Just before we move to both, I wanted to double check that. So I would move the ordinance, the repealer ordinance.
As is.
As is. All right, is there any further questions? All right, proper motion on the floor. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. We are moving on to discussion item D, the ordinance add chapter 886, section 886.01 886.07, service charge of 4% annual shelter rents for eligible housing development projects. Council,
I would move to amend section 4 to state that this ordinance shall take effect on the 14th day after enactment unless. City council.
Can we give it immediate effect?
We don't do it anymore because of the publications issue. I mean, I guess the city attorney can answer that question.
You can, but it works out to about 14 days.
No. We should just.
do we have any other discussion? I do have a couple things, and I did share this. with-
Did you want to take
Oh,
a vote
A
on his
vote on
motion
the
to amend?
amendment, yes, we'll take a vote on the amendment for this section 4 to have it added for the 14th, take place on the 14th. All those in favor for that motion?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes. Now bringing to the discussion for the actual ordinance. So as I had already shared Monday, some of the issues, I don't want to say issues, but concerns that has been brought to me, obviously, is the any penalties if there is a discrepancy on the affordability aspect of it, making sure that there is 30% of the housing. That has been something that has been brought to me from, obviously, the public. Also, during public comment, there was conversation on what that projected annual property tax revenue would be as far as loss, thinking long-term, what that would look like. So I would be curious to understand a little bit more of that fiscal impact analysis of this long-term. So just want to make sure that we're seeing the full scope of things based off of what was shared during public comment. The other piece that I shared was the developments. Who determines the qualification? Is there any guardrails or capacity limitations on those developers, or is it like all in one bucket per se? Raleigh?
I'd be happy to speak to
Yes.
all of that if you'd like.
Yes, please.
These are, try to answer as much as I can. It's the first time I'm hearing these, but I would say if passed, this would follow the current pilot process that you already have in place. And so all of that runs through economic development and planning, specifically our community development division. So currently you can apply for a pilot now, whether it be a workforce or a regular pilot. This ordinance just allows you, if passed, to get a by right for, but the application will remain the same. The vetting will remain the same. And so you apply through our office. That's on our webpage. It's a however many page application requires anything and everything we would need to know about the financing, the who, the what, the where, the when, the how. That gets vetted by community development staff along with, they do a checks and balance with other city departments, treasury for tax implications, planning, code for any open violations, building safety for permitting and so forth. And then ultimately a recommendation is made to my office and then to the mayor's office for anything by right. And then if it's not a by right in a lower percentage, then it gets referred to this body, your body, for introduction, referral, and goes through that process for vetting.
Say it again, you said if it's not.
If it's not a by right, so, yep, so if it's not a currently by right 10, then it would go through council after the mayor gets the referral from community development. Pilots that are in place, or whether now or in the future, are then subject to annual monitoring, both by community development office and the city assessor. Ultimately, the city assessor is the entity that will have the final stamp, and they actually issue the payment in lieu of taxes bill to the developer. And so that requires them to submit annual documentation regarding income monitoring, rent certification, and so forth. This is pretty standard documentation in the affordable housing world, much because those developers already have to provide that information to themselves, their ownership entities, but really MSHDA. And we get to lean and defer to MSHDA on a lot of the scrutiny and annual review of these things as well. In terms of if somebody's to violate the terms, certainly in an annual monitoring, if we note that, we would then work in consultation with Greg's team on any follow-up, but again, likely would take the lead and follow the lead of MSHDA on that, because if they're violating our terms, they're likely in violation of MSHDA's terms and the tax credit regulatory agreement in general. I think I'm catching everything. The fiscal impact, that's an interesting one in terms of, I can't predict future because it depends on who and what applies and what developments. Certainly we could work on, well, unlikely by the 27th, but looking at all current pilots in place and giving a fiscal, I wouldn't say impact, I would call it a fiscal analysis, because I think often the community looks at this sometimes and sees it just as a net tax loss because of the pilot, but they're forgetting about one, a property is being redeveloped in general. Largely the tax base of that site is going up anyways with the development being built new or rehab. Secondly, we would account for then all the tenants if they're working, and the income tax, whether fully in Lansing or the half percentage, and then certainly the buying power of having more people living here in quality units. And so that would go into a much larger fiscal analysis versus just a straight look at, using Walter French as an example, whether Walter French was paying full ad valorem versus a pilot. And the analysis of that would tell you you wouldn't have Walter French without the pilot.
Would there be, with anyone qualifying for this, would it be additional incentives from state or federal
Sure.
incentives as well? Can they apply?
Not necessarily tax related incentives, but there could be a variety of CDBG, community development block grant dollars that they could apply for either through us, we get our own, or the state, or there's other grant-like programs, but not necessarily another layered property tax incentive.
One thing I think that has not been mentioned in any of the conversations we've had about this is these are not 38-year pilots. They're not 30-year pilots. They're not 25-year pilots. They are capped at 18 years. So some of the concerns we've heard today, some of the concerns we've heard on social media have been about doing this by right for 4% for 40 years. That's not happening. These are 18 years. Anything outside of that scope has to go through the normal pilot process. And I think that's really key and important because these are shorter term projects than what we're used to seeing come to us.
I have some questions.
Yeah, go ahead.
So the reporting that gets done at the yearly, is it staggered or do they all come in at the same time? Is there like a time period where everybody has to file their?
Right. It's generally all around the same time. Certainly they are all turned in on the same day, but the monitoring on our end starts at the same time. And then the assessor works hard to get all the pilot bills out at the same time. Yes.
Is there a way for us to get updates on like a
Yeah.
report?
Certainly.
Like, we got all our pilot reports in and this is the trends and this is because I think that
Yeah.
would help and go a long way to like the transparency issues that people cited,
Sure.
like, oh, these are all terrible units and actually we don't have the data.
Sure.
We do have the data, we're just not either us getting it or the folks getting
Sure.
it in a way that they can digest it.
Absolutely. I can commit to working with the mayor's office on an initial analysis of the current pilots we have in place and then share that out and then maybe work with this body to see how often that, whether annually or not.
Yearly would be good because that's when we get the reports.
Sure. Absolutely. Yeah.
Any other questions? from the committee?
I'll move the ordinance.
It's a proper motion. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, all right, passes. So that will be going back to council 27th, yep, 27th. All right, is there any other business before us?
Just a reminder, your next meeting, August 6th is canceled
Oh,
because there's
yes.
no quorum.
Yes,
So you won't meet again until August 20th.
thank you, Sherry.
On July 27th,
Right
if
on.
there are any referrals, I'll work with the chair
Mhm.
in potential that something has to happen before the 20th or before the end of August at council.
And there's always the possibility we can short circuit it to cow.
All right, sounds good. Thank you, Sherry. We are adjourned at 3:21.
A lot. Raleigh. Luke.